Okay, we're up to Ayin Vav Amid Aleph, the second line down, and the Mishnah had said that if a person steals, he's magdashit. So it'd be after Shina Yish v'Shina v'Shus, V'Yachach Tavu Machar, and then he's Tavech Machar. He's Mishlam Tashlumei Kefal being Mishlam Tashlumei Dalad Hey, as opposed to the first Mishnah where the Hegdish took place after the Tficha, then he would pay Dalad Hey. So first Mishnah that we said was Gonav Tavach v'Higdish. This is Gonav Higdish v'Tavach. Okay, this is Gonav Higdish v'Tavach. Now Bishlema Tficha loy mechayev. Bishlema on the Shechita is not chayev. The Chikotavik, the Hegdish Kotavach. Because when he goes ahead and he shechts it, he is shechting Hegdish. He's shechting Hegdish. So it's not considered what? It's not considered the owners anymore. It's the person that he stole from. Right? He's shechting Hegdish, and he's not shechting of the master. Ella must be what? Ella Fred Gemara, a Hegdish l'chayev. Why are you laughing?
Because, like, it's almost 7 is calling.
Anyway, so guys, so I can't be mechayev you on the tficha, right? Because it's hegdish. But what about the act of making it hegdish? Isn't that tantamount to bechira? To mechira, not clear. To bechira. What's mechira? You're changing rishus. You sold it to someone. So I sold it to Hegdish. In other words, the act of Hegdish is a transfer. Why don't we view that to be Chayiv Dalad Hey? So again, says the Mishnah, Gonav v'Hegdish v'Tavach. You can't be Chayiv on the Tficha because it's Hegdish. But what about the actual act of being Magdishit? The act of being Magdishit should be tantamount with Mechira. And therefore I should be Chayiv on that. So Lam Kasha, guys, right? Very nice Kasha. Ella Hegdish the Chayiv. So we're 4 lines down on Ayin Vav Amid Aleph. So mali machul hedya, mali machul shemayim. What would the difference be if I sell it to a hedyet or I sell it to shemayim? Good kasha. So we're going to have 2 truths. Hum money, Rav Shimon he. This is Rav Shimon. The Amar kachim shechay bachru yuson b'shusei demara kaimei. Kachim that you're going to have to make up. Guys, you say harei alai to bring a carbon. Me. If the carbon gets lost, you still have to bring it. It's a chatos. You have a kapara. You're going to bring it. So it's something that belongs to you, right? Even if it's hegdish, it's a dava hagoyrim lemamin. We had this earlier in the Masechta. Something that's goyrim kamamin. So it's considered what? It's still considered the owners. So therefore, what? The act of being magdashit is not being meicher. It's not hegdish. You're going to have to make it up. Okay, so the kasha is therefore. So why should I not be chayiv on the? Right? I'm in the middle of share. So why then if it's still you have to make it up? So why am I not chalav dalad v'hei on the tficha? Guys, outside. Said the Mishnah din. If you go ahead if you go ahead and steal, you're magdish the animal, you're tavich the animal, you don't pay dalad v'hei. Fred the Gemara, good, I don't pay dalad v'hei on the tficha. I should pay dalad v'hei on the act of hegdish. That should be mechira. And for the Gemara, the Mishnah is going according to Reb Shimon, who says that dava garn l'mamin is money. So even if I bring magdashit, since I have to make it up, it's like my money. So it's like your money. Linear tficha also should be yours, right? Let's see Rashi. Reb Shimon, 4th line down. Ukigain shama harei alay oila. It's upon me to bring an oila. That's a neder. The hifish geneva zulin nidroi, and he separates this as his neder. The act that he stole, he stole something. He's now separates it as his neder. The kim the chay bachru yusai, since he's chay bachrayis, because he said harei alai, it's upon me. The dava hagarim lemamin who kimamidami v'lav mechirahi, and therefore it's not selling it to hegdish. Freg Rashi umiu le'inyan tficha pata. All right, guys. Afagav is always a kasha. The afagav the b'shus ganif kaime, even though it's in the b'shus of the ganif the of the chayiv bachru yusan lahagdish. Nonetheless, challah mi shem hegdish lafukim b'shus mare kama v'lav the mare katavach. In other words, hegdish does something. It does something. So the inyan mechira, an act of mechira, it's not. Well, the Ian Teficha, in other words, it's not an act of Mechira, because why? I still, I have to make it up if anything happens to it. But a change in status there is. That change in status that Hegdish has a piece of the action over here makes it that the Teficha lav demari katava. So we're splitting hairs over here. We're splitting the difference between Mechira and Hegdish. By Hegdish, the shame Hegdish is chal on it. To take it out, Linyan, it's not the Baal's Linyan that you could do anything you want with it. Inyan Mechira, to say it's an outright Mechira, that I won't say. Says this, that's the teretz of the Gemara. So one more time. For Aglish Hegdish Lachaya, 4 lines down, but Yankel, we catch him right up. The good, if you're gonna Magdish Tavach, it doesn't work the Tficha, but let the act of Hegdish itself be considered a Mechira. You're going from your Rishon to the other one. So be Chayiv Daled V'Hei on the fact that you will Magdish it. On that, the Gemara answers, and the part of the Kasha, Mali Machal Hed, Mali Machal Shemayim. And for the Gemara, Hamani Rab Shimoni Damar, Kachim Shechayim Yusan, Rishusi Demara Kaimi. Since the Dava Garn Mom is Mom, and I'm going to have to make it up, it's still considered in the owner's Rishus, and therefore it does Heshnish Kaim Mechira. I linear Tficha, Rashi spoke out loud that it's still considered Hegdish. Now, Fred the Gemara, this is a hard teretz to give, guys. Hamid the Sefer of Shimon have a racial lot of Shimon. Guys, why did the Mishnah say? Look back in the Mishnah for a second. Look back. Look. Menachem, I'm saying share. Okay. So now, if you look at the Ayin Dalit Amid base, Ayin Dalit Amid base. So we're discussing the case of Gun of a Higdish, right? And we're saying this is Rav Shimon. 2 lines later, Rav Shimon Aimer, Kachim Shechai Bechar Yusam Mishalim Tashlim B'Dal V'Hei Shein Chavisim Mitpata, right? So when Shimon starts talking over there, obviously until then wasn't talking. So you can't answer the logistically. You can't say it was Rav Shimon. So if it's not Rav Shimon, it's Taka Kasha. Why is it not a Mechira, the act of Hegdish? You should pay Dalet V'Hei on the act of being Magdashit. So a second chance. When the Sefer Rav Shimon, Lav Rav Shimon. Elahachem Eskinam B'Kachim Kalim Aliv D'Reisei Glili. Dama Kachim Kalim Mam Bailam Hu. Okay, Ubeshusei Kaim. Okay, we met Rabbi Yosei Glili earlier in the Masechta, right? That Rabbi Yosei Glili says the din, the Kichesh Ba'Misoy, that by Shvua, if you go ahead and deny a carbon that's in your Rishus, that's Kachim Kalim, it's Mum and Bailam, it's a Kafir Mum, and then you become Shvua say this. If you Magdash Anisha with a Shlom, she Mikudeshes, it's considered your money, right? So Memela, very good. You know why over here the act of being Magdashit is not considered a Mechira? Because it's still yours. It's still yours. Now, that would be limited to Kachim Kalim, which we'll discuss in a second. And the Mishnah said, Stam Hegdish, Mashma any Hegdish, right? So to the Mishnah speaking, you know what type of Hegdish it's speaking about? That what? It's speaking about what? Where you were Magdish Kachim Kalim. Therefore, it's not a Mechira because it's still yours. But if you do a Tficha, the same Hegdish is on it, that you would be parted from Dalet V'Hei. So that's it can't be Rav Shimon because Rav Shimon begins speaking in the Sefer, so it must be Rabbi Yosei Galili. So Rabbi Yosei Galili, who holds the Kachim Kalim Mam Bailam, who Ubeshusei Kaimei. Now, Alvei Kochi Kedoshim Mai Misham Tashnumi Dalid V'Chamisha. Yes, guys, a Kachim Kalim you pay, right? Kochi Kedoshim you pay Dalid V'Hei. Why? Because the act of being Magdash it is a Mechira. Good. Now, we have two inverse Mishnayos. The first Mishnah was on Daf earlier and said, if you go ahead, you steal your Tavach, and then your Magdish, right? You're going to pay Dalet V'Hei. Steal, Tavach, you're going to pay Dalet V'Hei. However, if you're stealing Hegdish Tavach, you're not. So mashma, that there is no way if you go ahead and steal Tavach, steal Magdish Tavach, that you're going to pay Dalet V'Hei, correct? L'chayra, you could have told me this chiddush in the Reisha. In other words, the Reisha said only Gonav Tavach Tavach Hegdish, then you pay Dalet V'Hei. What are you talking about? I could tell me the chiddush of the Sefer. I could tell me a chiddush that it's shaykh to go ahead, steal, magdish, shecht, and still pay Dalet V'Hei on the act of hegdish.
That's the only case that you could do. Aren't there other inverse cases?
The inverse is Kaddish, Tavach, Hegdish, And the other Mishnah we have on Dayan Daled is Gonav Hegdish Tavach. That's the Mishnah on Dayan Daled. So that's the inverse case. So the Gemara's mashma, this was the only way you pay Daled V'Hei. So the Gemara's asking you, like, remember I always told you, if you can tell me the Chiddush innately there, okay. So says the Gemara the following. So if you're telling me on Kotche Kedoshim, you're going to pay on the act of Hegdish, also the act of Mechira Daled V'Hei, Liflug V'Lisni B'Di Day. You should have told me the Chiddush, right? And you wouldn't need, you don't always need that first Gonav, then Tavach. When do we say that Gonav and Tavach pays Daled? Say that what that you put that's because Shem Kalim. Why? Because it's still in the rishus of the owner. So therefore, for that reason, guys, Mishnah can't be Rabbi Seglili. So it can't be Rabbi Shimon because Rabbi Shimon begins talking in the Sefer. It can't be Rabbi Seglili because then it's not a true statement. Gonav hegdish v'tovach, there is hechatim, so you will pay Daled V'Hei if the animal what is kachik kedashim, because then the act of being magdashit is tantamount with mechira. Says the Gemara, Ela lo'olam lo'ishna kachik kedashim lo'ishna kachim kalim. When the Mishnah said you steal your magdashit tovach, you're going to be pata. Why? With the kashalach mali machal lehed yamali machal shemayim pirish, guys. So why isn't the act of mechira the act of hegdish considered a mechira? What's the difference if I go ahead and sell it to hegdish or I sell it to shemayim? Says the Gemara, machru lehedyet may kara to the ruvain. Initially, when it's the hedyet, I sell it, it's ruvain. I stole it from ruvain. The hashta to the shimon. Whoever I sold it to is shimon. Machru l'shemayim may kara to the ruvain. The hashta to the ruvain. Even if it's hegdish, it's still called the shor of ruvain. This is Ruvain Zoila. One of the things, guys, for example, you have to, when you sect the animal, it has to be l'reich nichoyach, right? It has to be l'shem bailim. Why is it called the baal if it's hegdish? What's the answer? That even though it's hegdish, the shame of the baal is still on it. The says das is dein carbon. It's your carbon. So l'inyan mechira, right? It goes from one person to another person. It has a different shame. Over here by hegdish, it doesn't have a different shame. Memela, it's not an act of mechira. The only thing possibly that can be chayim Daled V'Hei is tficha, and tficha it's already after the act of hegdish. So I'm not shechting. So that the lumdus over here is that initially when you sell it as to Ruvain, from Ruvain to Shimon, it goes to Shimon. Mashen came when you go ahead and sell it to hegdish, it's still called Ruvain's animal. Let's see Rashi again, guys. Machul lehedyet may kara to the Ruvain. Parallel to this Gemara a few lines down. Machru lehedyet may kar to the Ruvain. Kaidim shemachru, before you sold it, kari ashar al shmoy shel ganif. It was called the ganif. Ukeshemachru kari al shem lokeach. Aval machru l'shemayim adayin shem hamagdishay alav. It's the shame of the one that was magdashit is on it. Shekari oilasay shel ploini. We call it the oila of so and so. So therefore, the act of mechira is not what the act of hegdish is not a mechira. So if you look like you're bothered by something.
It's telling you the source of who is makdish. It's giving the lineage of how it got the hegdish.
What happens if I checked it without if it's hegdish? I checked it without not the Baal's name. First Mishnah Masechtas Vachim. It's not a good carbon. So what do you see? There's a bilus. You have to check the shame the Baal. It's his carbon. It's his carbon. It's not just a semantics. No, he still is considered the owner of the carbon. And if you don't check it, the shmoy. Right? It's geschmack. It's geschmack and teretz. Guys, you good? Guys, you good? So again, we had a kasha. What was the kasha? Guys, outside. We had a kasha. If you go ahead and Amisha said, you're going ahead and you're stealing. And you're magdish, the ganif is magdishit. The ganif is magdishit, right? And then the ganif goes ahead and shechts it. He's not going to pay Daled V'Hei. Fred the Gemara, good. He's not paying Daled V'Hei on the tficha because he's shechting hegdish. Why do you say that he's going to pay Daled V'Hei on the mechira because he's selling from this guy to hegdish on the mechira itself? That should be Daled V'Hei. We attempted to say it's Rav Shimon. Davar Gan L'Mamin is money, so it still belongs to him. We attempted to say it's Rabbi Glili who says that it's Mamin Bailim. I said it's Mamin Bailim. And we failed in both one account for Shimon on that account. If you say Glili, you'll be limiting to Kachik Kalim and not Kachik Kadashim, become a universal teretz. If you sell to Hegdish, it's not a Mechira because you're still considered the owner. Even though it's Hegdish and Linyan Tficha, it's Hegdish. It's kind of a hybrid. Okay, very geschmack. Okay, now look back in the Mishnah, guys. Look back at the Mishnah. Ayin Dalar on the base. Reb Shimon Oimer. Reb Shimon says Rav Shimon says, "Kachim shechai b'achru yusam mishalim tashlumei daled v'hei u'she'ein chai b'achru yusam pata." Now, where does Rav Shimon say his din on? Where did he say his din? Pasha should say he's going on the din of Ganav, Tavach v'Higdish. Ganav v'Higdish v'achach Tavach v'Mocha. That's when he began right after that. So now, the Gemara names on as a Dava Pashit that Rav Shimon would not say by Tficha that you chayiv daled b'hei. He wouldn't say chayiv daled b'hei. He says it's on the act of Mechira. He doesn't buy into now. It's this tour, the tour of Ruvain and the tour of Hegdish. He would say that, you know what, it's going on the actual act of Hegdish as a Mechira, and the following. So it's going on that. In other words, where are you paying daled v'hei, guys? You're paying daled v'hei on the Mechira. So now let's go through this. If you're paying daled v'hei on the Mechira, it has to be out of your rishus, correct? Mm-hmm. If you chayiv b'achrayis is a svar that it's out of your rishus or in your rishus, right? In your rishus. So it will be the exact opposite of what he's saying, right? It will be the exact opposite of what he's saying. Kachim shechayiv b'achrayis, so you be chayiv daled v'hei, and it's not, you be pata. But then it will be, if it's going on that case, it would be the opposite. It doesn't make any sense. Again, stemming on that Shimon says on the tficha, it doesn't make a difference. The only possible way for Hegdish be chayiv is to chayiv on the act of Hegdish, and that's Mechira. Good? So if that's the case, it makes no sense. It's the exact opposite. You're right. Dava garim l'mamin, something that causes money, which means it's still yours. Yeah, you pay daled v'hei. But 1 second. If the act of Mechira is Hegdish, then it's not a Mechira. Because you're telling me that what? It's mine. It's still mine. So the Gemara therefore is going to say if Shimon's going on not on a Mishnah, he's going on a totally different din. He's not going on a Mishnah. On a Mishnah makes no sense. Let's see it inside. It says the Gemara, Amar, Amri, Nihi de Savar of Shimon, Mali Machru Lehedyit, Mali Rachlu Shemayim. In other words, if Shimon doesn't make the distinction of what Ruvain and Shimon, right? He doesn't make that distinction. He says it's the same thing. In other words, you should be chayiv for the act of Hegdish. That's what those words mean. Mali machru lehedyit, so I sell to Shimon. Mali rachlu shemayim, it's going out of the rishus of the ganif. So you should pay. So if that's the case, ibchami boyelei, then it should be the opposite. Kachim shechai b'achru yusan pata. Why? The akati lo'nafik mishusei. It's not a mechira. Kachim she'en chai b'yusan chayiv. Why? The mafik le'mishusei. He goes out of his rishus. And Rav Shimon says the opposite. Guys. Good? So now, because of this, Amir Rav Shimon al milsach rita. Rav Shimon said what on something else. So guys, in other words, like Rav Shimon in our Mishnah, if you're goniv hegdish v'tavach, you're not going to be chayiv for the hegdish. You're not going to be chayiv for the hegdish, and you're not going to be chayiv for the tficha. Why not? Let's see Rashi. But right before he gets why 4 lines up. Rav Shimon al milsach rita koi. The heiki the agdish ganiv, where the ganiv is magdashit, bein l'neder, bein l'nedava, whether he has to make it up or nedava harizu and he doesn't have to make it up. Chayev le Rav Shimon, he's not going to be chayev. Lava shaita the hegdish, not on the time of the hegdish, which will be the mechira, mishum dadayin shemaya love, because his name is still on it. In other words, it's not a mechira. Nidvasa shaploini. And you're not going to be chayiv at tficha either. Why? The mishus mari kama nafik, because it left the mishus of the mari kama of the ganif. Ella, it must be going on a case of a goyim hegdish that he stole hegdish shedishu bailim koi. He's stealing an existing carbon. He's stealing an existing carbon. The kivin the chayiv bailim b'achruyas, since the baal is chayiv b'achruyas, ki katavich the mari katavich. The dava garm l'mam is kamam dami. Okay, so guys, outside, Rav Shimon can't be going on a Mishnah. Miman of shach. If it's in the act of hegdish, it's still in the mishus of the marikama. Dava garm l'mam is money. If it's taveach, it's certainly not as he's shechting what? He's shechting hegdish. So therefore, what is it going on? It's going on the way he steals an existing carbon. So watch. I steal an existing carbon. I shecht it, yeah? This owner of the carbon, if he said, I have to bring it's upon me to bring a carbon, is this carbon worth something to him? Yeah, right? It is. So even though it's Hegdish, he's going to have to make it up, correct? Then you're going to pay the Alavahei. This carbon is going to cost me money. I'm going to have to make it up. I'm going to have to make it up. You have to pay. So if Shimon is mechalik, says the Gemara, a ganif, if they're in other ganif, does not pay Dalavahei. The chain goin of hegdish mi base bilim. This is what we need. Someone who steals hegdish, an existing carbon from the house of the Baal, pata from Dalavahei. My timer, the goin of a base ish, below me base hegdish. Shimon, no, it depends. Kachim shechay bachur yusan chayiv. If you steal a carbon, a shlamim, an oila, anything that's a neder, a chatas that he wants the kapara, anything that this carbon is going to be in place of, he's got to replace it, is considered what? Mom and Bailam. My timer, Karina may be going to be Besa Ish. It's considered Besa Ish. He's the owner. And therefore you're going to pay Dalavahei. But let's say it's a carbon that you're not Chaybach Rayas. Let's say he said Harizu carbon. In other words, if it's in the Dava. So if I bring this one, yeah, and something else not, Pata, the like Karina may be going to be Besa Ish. Good. So Shimon. That's what guys. So that's what Shimon said is then on another case, not where the ganef was magdashit. He said it in the case where the owner was magdashit. He's stealing existing carbon. So if this existing carbon, what even though it's hegdish, it's shayach ganef hegdish for tavach. You're going to pay dalavahei. If this existing carbon has to be replaced, then it's considered mom and bailam. If it doesn't have to be replaced, then not. That we're not going on that case.
That there's no kiddush at all because the kind of is not there.
Right. But
that means shouldn't have to say Dalavahei. What's the kiddush of Dalavahei?
Which case?
The beginning it says I'm going to.
Now he goes ahead. He's taveach, right? He's taveach. You could say he's kind of it, and he's taveach. It's not considered base ish. That's the kiddush. Okay, but we're not going on that at all. He's going on the case of Hegdish. He's going in the case of Hegdish. Okay, so very good. Now, the Gemara is going to ask a Govaldig Kasha, and it's going to give a few terutzim. Okay, and we're going to stop in the middle of one of the terutzim because we're very short after tomorrow, and I have to go to the airport. Okay, so everything works out. Okay, now watch. Michti, Shamina Leila Reb Shimon, the Amar Shchita Sheina Ruya, Loishma Shchita. If I shecht a treifa, I'm part from Dalavahei. Why? Because it's shchita sheina ruya. You can't eat it. Good? You can't eat it. Kachim nami shchita sheina ruya he. Kachim also is guys. Kachim is considered shchutei chutz. Shchutei chutz, right? You partially shechted outside. Can I eat it? No. So forget the problem of who's the owner. Is it Hegdish or an owner? And I'm chayiv Dalavahei. You should put from Dalavahei for a zaytik reason. Like Rav Shimon says you need a shchita that leads to an achila. This does not lead to an achila. No, shchutei chutz. He's shechting this outside the Beis Hamikdash. Forget what it is. No matter what it is, it's chayiv karis. It's not a good shchita. It's just about now. It's a great question, right? It's a great question. So again, we know that Rav Shimon holds that shchita shein ruya because he holds the treifa bipata because it's shchita shein ruya, right? He said chulin ba'zara, we said two cases where he would agree. He said shchutin ba'zara. He said chulin ba'zara was one of them. I don't remember the other one. And what was the other one? And the other one was he shechted for the dogs, right? Or for refuah, shechted for the klavim, right? But treif and chulin ba'zara, Rabbi Shimon says is shchita shein ruya. But shechting for medicine, medicinal purposes, what a club mishkita ruya. But mela, chulin bazar is no good. So certainly, what kachim b'chutz is no good. Yeah, so that's a problem. How can you be chayav dalavei even if he owns it? Even if you're going to say that the animal even if the animal right is considered dava garm lemamin and it has so he's that the owner of the carbon that the guy who stole it from, who's going to have to make it up. It's his carbon. You still have another problem. You don't have a shchita. In other words, you have a problem of you have to shech it has to belong to somebody. Well, it belongs to somebody, but now you have a zaytika problem. It's not a shchita. Why? Because I'm shechting a carbon outside. I'm shechting a carbon outside. Says the Gemara, Kiyasa Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Rav Dimi came and said to Rabbi Yochanan, B'shoiche tamimim b'fnim l'shem bailim. Oh, you know why? You didn't shecht it outside, guys. You shecht it inside, right? And you shecht it l'shem bailim. So in other words, it's a shchita ruya. You took the carbon. So Ruvain steals Shimon's carbon. Ruvain, the Ganef, goes ahead, brings it to the base of Migdash, tells the Kayin it's it's Shimon's carbon, and they shecht it for Shimon. So, anything wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that, right? So he's going to pay Daled B'Hei. Because what? It's Davar Garim L'Mamin, right? It's Davar Garim L'Mamin. It's worth that money to him, right? But now the question is, he got it back, right? He returned it. He returned it to him, right? In other words, he's not going to
replace it.
What?
He doesn't have to replace it.
He doesn't have to replace it. In other words, Fred the Gemara. Vari Chosver Keren Lebailam. He's Mekayim the mitzvah Hashava by going in and bringing it. So why is he Chayiv Daled B'Hei? You're avoiding the shechita problem by saying it's not shchutei chutz. He shechted it inside. And not only did he shecht it inside, he shechted it for Ruvain, for Shimon. He shechted it for the right person, yeah? So the shechita was a good shechita. So then there's no tficha, but everything was great. He's going to have to bring this to the carbon anyway. So I bought the carbon for you. So why I paid Daled B'Hei? What? Everything was good? Okay. Anyway. What?
What a question.
That's guy who's living Torah. That's the guy who's living Torah. You're the kasha, guys. It's Gavaldik kasha. And for the Gemara, Rav Yitzchak bar Avin, Shenishbach Adam. You know why he's going to have to bring another carbon? You know why? Although the shechita was good, they messed up the zrika. They messed up the zrika. Now we know there's four avoiders: the shechita, kabbalah, halach, and zrika. What makes the carbon a good carbon? The zrika. The zrika. In other words, shechita is kosher bizarre. Shechita be even by a non-kayin. What makes the carbon is the zrika. So Mamela, the Zrika wasn't done, so he's going to have to make it up? Yes. So is it a good shechita? Yes, it's a good shechita. It was done inside. It's not chutz. But it's not a good carbon because why? He's going to have to bring another one. Okay, very, this is Rav Dimi's teretz according to Rabbi Yochanan. Yes. Sometimes you see the Gemara, the guys like, make it fit. It's great. Yeah, that's great. Now, Kiyasa Ravin, and very often Ravin and Rav Dimi argue what they heard from Rabbi Yochanan. Like the game of, if we came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, things change. Kiyasa Ravin Am Rabbi Yochanan b'shoichet mibifnim, right? You shechted it inside, and you did this rika, and everything was great. However, it was shalom shem bailam. What's the first mishnah in Zvachim? Right, the first mishnah in Zvachim. Right? It wasn't a half hour ago. You must have been sleeping. Anyway, so anyway. So it's the first mission in Zvachim, right? So is he going to have to bring another carbon? Yes. Is the carbon bought correctly? Yes. And everything was done except one thing. It wasn't brought l'shem bailim. So this would go ahead. It's a shchita ruya. It's brought inside. It's not shchutei chutz. This rika was done. It's a totally good carbon, right? But if it's a shlamim, you could eat it after this rika. However, you're gonna have to replace it. You have to replace it. Okay. So we have two terutzim, right? We have three terutzim. We have a machloikis between Ravin and Rav Dimi. What Rabbi Yochanan said is it speaking about a carbon l'shem bailim v'nishbach damai. According to Rav Avin, it's speaking about what? It's speaking about everything. Everything was done well except with l'shem bailim. It's speaking about what? The shchita of a Baal Mum b'chutz. If it's a Baal Mum outside, you don't have a problem of shchutei chutz. Guys, in order to be shchutei chutz, it has to be royal love of the Pesach oil moed. If it's not royal love of Pesach oil moed, we had this before, right? You're at this point in the time in the programming in Shas, guys, where I could say all the time, you had this before. Anyway, so it has to be royal love of Pesach oil moed, and this is not, because it's a Baal Mum. It's the Baal Mum. So not the shaychet, the animal. The animal is a Baal Mum. So now it's a shchita ruya. It's roy lachila. it was Hegdish. It was Hegdish. And now, okay, so now let's see Rashi here. So Balimum Shechitasan Heta Bechutz, it was Kodesh, it got a mum. Now the question is, when did it get a mum? Was he Rashi brings in Rashi brings in that what? It's speaking where Balmume Kara Askina. It's speaking as a Balmume Kara. So in other words, it's Roy, it's not Roy Shchute Chutz, but it's so why are you paying Dal Vehei? Because it's Kodesh until you paid it. Right? It's Kodesh until you paid it. So therefore, since I'm not paid it, like I can't, I'm not able to eat it. So now, now Toy Bar of Elazar, Blushing Toy is like he's smelling. He's saying something doesn't schmeck correctly over here. Rabbi Yochanan Shchita Materes. Rabbi Yochanan the Shchita is Mata, but it's Rika Materes, right? And therefore it should be a Shchita Shenaruya. Guys, when you shech the carbon, could you eat from the meat? No, you can't. Not until this Rika. Not until after this Rika. In other words, you can have a mechanical shchita, but halachically you can't eat from the meat. So Rabbi Yochanan said, shchita ruya you shecht, but you need to do a zrika. Why? Because the blood spilled. So this is where Rabbi has a problem over there. He says that you're telling me that shchita zrika materes, Reish Lakish shchita materes, v'aloi padiyah materes. It's not the act of shchita that matters. You can't eat the meat till you paid it, guys. The act of padiyah. So therefore, he has a problem with this. What's his problem? Like Rabbi Yochanan, you need this rika, and you never had it. And like Reish Lakish, you need a padiyah. If you're not paid it, that's still a shchita shenaruya. In other words, how do we want to avoid the problem? Like Rabbi Yochanan, like Rabbi Shimon, that if a person steals a carbon, his money, and he has to replace it. So good, we know that it belongs to the owner, not Egdish. You still have a problem of shchita shenaruya. Rabbi Yochanan wants to avoid it by saying that you shechted it inside. Reish Lakish says you want to avoid it by saying it had a mum. Okay, if you shechted inside, so why it should be a good shchita? So everything should be good, but the problem is you never have a zrika. If you don't have a zrika, it's still shchita shenaruya. You can't eat it. Like Reish Lakish, good, it's not a problem shchita chutz because of the mum, but until you paid it, you can't eat it. So again, the shchita is not a good shchita because there's another act that needed to matter it. So it should remain a shchita shenaruya. So in other words, we're reestablishing the kasha that we asked on Rabbi on the shot of Reb Shimon. So says the Gemara, that was Rabbi Elazar's problem. Says the Gemara, it slipped away from him. The Reb Shimon. It slips away Reb Shimon himself. L'shitasai. Kala oimed lizroik. Anything that can lizroik. When you shechted this carbon inside, it was a roifus rika. So kizarik dami. We'll view it as what as gespritz. So therefore, it's considered a shchita ruya. Okay, and kala oimed liftais is kipadei dami, and anything that's what standing for the redemption, like Reish Lakish, is considered redeemed. So therefore, that answers that kasha. So again, Reb Shimon said it din. Reb Shimon said it's din that what that if you steal a carbon, since the guy has to make it up, you be chayiv daled v'hei. If he doesn't have to make it up, you be put from daled v'hei. Read the Gemara, since it's speaking about stealing an existing carbon, how can you shecht it? It would be shchita shenaruya. And he holds, we see from, if you shecht the treifa, it's shchita shenaruya, loishmei shchita, and you're going to not be chayiv daled v'hei. So you shouldn't be chayiv daled v'hei over here, not because of the ownership, but because of the lack of the shchita. So we have three terutzim, right? We have three terutzim. We have the teretz of Ravin according to Rav Dimi, of Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Dimi. Later Rav Dimi, it's speaking where you shechted it inside, but you didn't do a good srika. Late Ravin is you shechted it inside, but it was sholish same bailim. Late Reish Lakish is you shechted bailim b'chutz. Rav Elazar, so l'chayr is a good shchita. Says the Gemara, 1 second, how can a good shchita? I need the act of srika, and I don't have it. I need the act of petiyah, like Reish Lakish, I don't have it. So on that, Rabbi Elazar asked that question. It slipped away from Elazar that Rabbi Shimon, who was saying this according to, he says, Kala Oimed Lizroik is considered what? Zoruk. Kala Oimed Liftois is Kapodi. And we'll pick it up here tomorrow, Bezos Hashem. Let's say a kapitel.